Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that asked you, should Obi-Wan and Vader encounter each other and duel in the upcoming Kenobi series? I'll also then be reading and responding to some of your comments left on the poll. And so let's waste no time and get right to the results, where we'll see that 44% of voters said it should absolutely not happen, 15% then said they were somewhat open to it, 6% said they were very open to it, another 5% said it must happen, and a final 30% said that it really depends on the circumstances around it. And it is kind of interesting to note that the number who absolutely do not want this to happen outnumber those who absolutely do want to see it by almost a 9-to-1 ratio. In other words, at least among those who voted in this particular poll, it's not going to be a very popular decision when and if they do indeed meet in person. Which seems like it could happen and is going to happen in some capacity. These two meeting, whether that be in person or a vision or something else, is yet to be seen, at least according to Kennedy, who promised the rematch of the century when it was announced that Hayden Christensen would be coming back to play Vader. And then there's what Ewan McGregor said at the end of the recent sizzle reel, that him and Hayden having another swing at each other could be quite satisfying for everybody, though the results of the poll don't necessarily agree with him, again depending on how that swing happens. And to begin to understand why that's the case, why almost half of the people who voted do not want to see these two encounter each other, let's get to some of your comments. But not before once again just saying thank you to everyone who does vote, comment, and watch these videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel over on Patreon. And so now let's get to it, starting with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Bexabici, who said, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. No more breaking canon. Last time they saw each other was on Mustafar. Next one was on the Death Star. However, some almost moments would be fun." Okay, and to be upfront here before really getting into it, I do find myself pretty firmly in the camp of not wanting them to literally encounter each other and duel again, though I do admit an almost moment could, I suppose, be interesting or could work if done right. Something that gives new meaning to Vader's line in A New Hope that it's a presence I've not felt since, and then he cuts himself off. He could be referring to a time he was close to finding Kenobi, or thought he was close and thought he sensed him or maybe encountered him through the Force somehow. Because let's be real here, we know Vader would be hunting Kenobi, that he would never ever give up hunting him as long as there's even a chance he is still out there. In fact, according to Rebels, or as we see in that show, and Rebels does take place several years after the upcoming Kenobi series will on the timeline, he's very much still looking for Kenobi, and makes it sound like he's had no luck thus far, and Palpatine seems rather unsure whether or not Kenobi is still alive. Tarkin, for what it's worth, also says something similar in A New Hope after Vader tells him the last time he sensed what he's sensing now aboard the Death Star was in the presence of his former master, which also means Vader basically outs himself to Tarkin as being, or once being, Anakin Skywalker, the apprentice of Obi-Wan. Though yes, it is heavily implied in the Tarkin novel that he already knows that little nugget of information. But anyway, even Tarkin says of Kenobi that surely he must be dead by now, meaning or implying, I think, there isn't any sort of imperial record of Kenobi being located or tracked or traced or whatever it might be in the previous 19 years since Revenge of the Sith and Mustafar. We very much get the impression from Palpatine in Rebels and Tarkin in A New Hope that no one has seen Kenobi since then. Alright, and now let's move on to some more comments, starting with this one from Death Star, who said, "Obi-Wan once thought as you do, Vader to Luke. Never really got this from Revenge of the Sith. Them encountering each other in the series could shed a whole new light on this quote." Okay, so I saw quite a few people bringing up this quote from Vader to Luke in Return of the Jedi, after Luke tells him basically just leave the dark side, it's simple. And that this saying then implies Vader had spoken to Obi-Wan since their encounter on Mustafar, and that Obi-Wan was trying to reason with him and bring him back to the light. But, and this is just me, you can completely disagree, I've always kind of taken that line as Vader basically acknowledging Luke was trained by Kenobi and that he had the same mindset or philosophy about the dark side that Kenobi once had, that they think the same way about it and don't truly understand it and the power of it. Anakin even says to Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith that, "I do not fear the dark side as you do." And yeah, I can certainly understand or see how others would interpret it differently, but that's what I've always taken away from it. Not so much that at some point Obi-Wan also tries to bring him back from the dark side, but that Luke just sounds like Obi-Wan once did. Okay, and let's move on now to this comment from Kickaboo Ninja, who said, "It can still make sense. I don't know why most fans getting their panties in a bunch LMAO. All it takes is for Vader to not consider himself a master until after the show. All Vader says to Obi-Wan is, 'I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.' So after their encounter, Vader grows and learns more before A New Hope and is finally a master." Okay, so let me just first say this is all in good fun, as is pretty much everything I like to do on this channel. I love Star Wars and discussing it and debating it as much as anybody out there. It's just something I really enjoy. And I certainly understand others have different views, opinions, or likes, or what they want to see out of it could be completely different from what I want to see out of it. So that said, and trying to see the other side of this argument a little bit, well, I can admit that even if everything Vader says in A New Hope is indeed referring to their last encounter being Mustafar, this line or these lines are still a little, shall we say, off. Anakin was not a learner at that point. As a matter of fact, he was pretty upset he wasn't made a master. And he didn't really leave Kenobi. I mean, in all reality, if anyone was left, it was Anakin being left for dead by Kenobi. Plus, I'm not so sure Vader would see it as him leaving the Jedi Order anyway, not when you keep in mind he believes they betrayed him and the Republic, that from his point of view, the Jedi were the evil ones, or in the wrong, and he was doing what he thought was right. So does that then mean we could or should sort of recontextualize those lines to imply he's talking about a different, more recent encounter with Kenobi? Well, I'm not so sure it wouldn't be better to just assume Vader's taking some verbal jabs at Kenobi and how things went down back in the day. Calling himself a learner then and a master now could be his way of saying that if the Jedi had only trusted me and made me a master instead of trying to just use me to spy on Palpatine, none of this may have happened. And then Kenobi replying by saying that you're only a master of evil, Darth, which doesn't make much sense since that's obviously not his name, it's the title. It could instead be some sort of classic Kenobi wit here, his way of saying that the only way you became a master was to become a Sith, to become a Darth. You never became a Jedi Master. As for the "when I left you" part out of Vader, well, that's really not going to be easy to make sense of one way or another, unless he is just referring to leaving the Jedi Order and leaving Anakin himself, his former self, behind, and leaving Kenobi in the process. Because, again, not only does Vader not leave Kenobi, it's Kenobi who leaves Vader for dead. And if the two had encountered since then, why did Vader leave Kenobi? Kenobi may have or will get away somehow if they do indeed fight again, but it makes no sense for Vader to say, "when I left you," if they do indeed meet again, because there's no way he's going to leave him alive or that he would just let him get away. Again, it's either Vader killing Kenobi or Kenobi somehow managing to escape him, which then doesn't make sense because, again, Rebels and other places imply that they're not even sure Kenobi's alive, that they've seen him in a long time. So a lot of this just does not make sense. Okay, so moving on now, we have a comment from Lee Everett who said, "Honestly, it's no different than Anakin fighting Dooku. Episode 3 made it seem like they only fought just those 2 times, but in Clone Wars they had multiple duels." Okay, so fair enough, and I get your point, but I'd say, for one, there's far less significance in the grand scheme of things with Dooku and Anakin fighting between episodes 2 and 3. Personally, I was just glad Anakin never fought Grievous in the Clone Wars because episode 3 makes it very, very clear they'd never met before in any way, shape, or form. Heck, they didn't even know how old or tall each other was. Plus, all Anakin says to Dooku in episode 3 to imply this is their first encounter since episode 2 is, "My power has doubled since last we met." And though, yeah, you kind of think he means since he got defeated in episode 2, his power has doubled. But with the confidence of Anakin, he could just as easily mean, "I'm twice as powerful as I was last Tuesday when we fought last time." And so him saying something like that about his power doubling fits with the character, in my opinion, even if it's been a short time, not since episode 2. Still, I do get your point, and I'd say the main difference is the impact it has on the saga on the whole. There isn't much importance when it comes to some extra encounters between Anakin and Dooku, but there is when it comes to Vader and Kenobi. Alright, and next up here we have this comment now from Justin Brutchin, who said, If it is a vision like Yoda versus Sidious in the Clone Wars, that's fine and could be awesome. But if it is in real life, absolutely not. This is because it would completely undermine the power and heart of Obi-Wan's sacrifice and death, along with undoing 40 plus years worth of canon. Then there's this comment from Sonic Mega King who said, only in a nightmare sequence by Kenobi if they really want it. Obi-Wan can see and escape from Vader, but Vader should never encounter him physically during this series, in my opinion. No Force visions, just Obi-Wan's nightmares and plagued subconscious. Also, there's this one from Math Isn't My Best Subject who said, I can understand a dream sequence duel. I expect a dream sequence duel, in fact. But for the story to make sense, for what George envisioned to make sense, Obi-Wan and Vader absolutely must not encounter each other in the flesh in this series. Also then, this one from Richard Sylvester who said, only through flashbacks and PTSD visions, absolutely not in real life. Also this one from Nomo FOMO who said, if you recall the Clone Wars series where Master Yoda goes through his training to become a Force Ghost, he had to face his fears. Maybe Obi-Wan goes through something similar in his training and faces Vader. But I am not opposed to them meeting again. That quote that everyone refers to is somewhat vague. There's ways around that. I trust that they have consulted Filoni and the story group, so I am not too worried. Okay, so if Kenobi fights Vader in some sort of dream sequence as part of him purging all his fears, similar to, as you point out, Yoda in Clone Wars, then I'm all for that. In fact, that sounds like an awesome idea to me because you could, at least Kenobi could, fully believe he's encountering the real Vader, or he's treating it as if he thinks it actually could be talking to the real Vader or Anakin, so we can get some genuine feelings and emotions out of him. And actually you could, this being a big could because it takes some real quality writing, you could have Vader go through a similar experience and face Kenobi, or think he's facing the real Kenobi in a similar sort of dream type sequence, or maybe he is facing the real Kenobi in the same dream, if you will, but afterwards neither are quite sure if it was real or not, and in fact both doubted that it was real, but it sort of reinvigorates Vader's belief that Kenobi is out there and it intensifies his hunt. This could then play into Vader's line in A New Hope that it's a presence I've not felt since that strange Force dream I had. This could let people sort of have the best of both worlds, I guess. It could give us a legit encounter between them, actually between them, but it's also one they're not sure was even real. Though, like I said, it would take some real clever writing and someone who actually paid attention to Season 6 of Clone Wars with Yoda and how that all worked. Because if you recall, Yoda also confronts Palpatine at one point in that story arc, while Palps is reaching out through the Force, that is. So maybe Vader does something similar, or Palpatine and Vader do something similar together to see if Kenobi is still out there. Maybe someone somehow using the master and apprentice bond between Anakin and Kenobi allows it to happen. And they're not sure if what they encounter was the real Kenobi, or just some sort of manifestation of Vader's hatred for Kenobi. But anyway, let's now move on to this comment from Luke Arnetos, who said, I think them legitimately dueling would break the significance of their duel in A New Hope, and it would be purely fan service anyways, which can easily be filled with a dream sequence fight. Also then this one from Luis Romero, who said, the fight needs to happen. Remember that Obi-Wan told Luke about Vader he's more a machine than man. That clearly shows that he has encountered him at least one time for him to know that. Plus, I know for sure that the video of SC-38 Darth Vader vs. Obi-Wan will play a big inspiration for the new Vader vs. Kenobi fight. Big fan of your channel. Okay, so first of all, thank you. And second, I'm pretty certain you're right that at some point the SC-38 remaster or remake of the A New Hope fight between Vader and Kenobi made the rounds at Lucasfilm and got a lot of people thinking, what if we did something like that for real, if you will, in a movie or a series? How much attention and excitement does that create? Which is kind of my fear when it comes to the Kenobi series, that they're only making it as an excuse to give us this epic fight, that it's only about the fan service and not them having a great story in place in order for them to encounter each other in a way that not only makes sense, but doesn't break the lore or the canon. Alright, and now time for just a few final comments before wrapping this up, but not before once again saying thank you to everyone who left comments. There were a ton of great comments that easily could have and should have been in the video that obviously will not be, so my apologies to you. Great comments, but just not enough time. Anyway, the first one then here is from Abro622, who said, if the fight enhances the story instead of digging a 6-foot plot hole, then I'm all for it. Then this one from Ace Gamerboy 18, who said, to actually meet up in person and fight, I say hard no. Only way it would work for me is if it's a dream/nightmare instead. Next up, this one from Blake Davison, who said, I'm sure I'll be in the minority for this, but I'd absolutely love to see a well-choreographed, well-acted fight between these two, especially if it's for a good reason. I could see Kenobi being on some sort of mission, Vader finding out through the Inquisitors, and then Vader showing up to try and stop him, even only for a moment. I hardly think this would do anything to truly lessen the impact of their meeting in A New Hope. It doesn't have to be grand-scale Revenge of the Sith type duel, but it could be a quick skirmish. That being said, I'd be 100% fine if this is only a nightmare/vision type scenario. Again, I just want there to be a good reason. Next up here then, this one from Comet Star, who said, yes, cause for me they never had a good proper battle. A New Hope's battle was okay, but it was too slow with the dialogue being corny at times. Then Revenge of the Sith's battle was so over the top and ended in the most disappointing way possible, and they were more dancing than looking like they were actually fighting. I'd think this battle would be the best because it won't ridiculously slow or fast, and the pace of the battle would just be right. Plus, they would be given good dialogue and no high ground crap to end the fight. Also here, this one from CWM, who said, while I would love to see a modern take on Vader and Obi-Wan dueling, it wouldn't fit in with the existing story. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want more badass Vader like what we got in Rogue One, but they need to resist the urge for fan service that would come at the expense of the original material. Also here, this one from Dave T. Geek, who said, no, I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you the last 2 times, maybe more, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. Also here, this comment from Fluffers626, who said, the only contact they should have is in memories and maybe through their bond in the Force, because it would dismiss Vader's entire speech and final duel with Obi-Wan in A New Hope. Then we have this one from Michaela Beck, who said, if they were to have a duel between Vader and Kenobi, the duel on Mustafar and then on the Death Star would lose a lot of its impact. Overdoing a concept makes all of them decrease in value. Mustafar is special because it is such a betrayal. The Death Star is special because it is the culmination of a small moment in a final confrontation. Those small moments will be bulldozed if there was a duel between them in the upcoming series. Also then, this comment from Red Harvest 29, who said, I think Clone Wars flashbacks would be a better use of both actors. And finally here, this comment from The Wanderer, who said, the circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. That does not sound like someone who saw Kenobi 10 or 9 years ago while at the height of his power as a Sith Lord. Darth Vader fought Kenobi twice, and twice only, in Star Wars and Revenge of the Sith. Anything else is breaking canon and a really bad idea. Always 2 there are, no more, no less. It works for Sith Lords and lightsaber duels between masters and apprentices. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think. Should Vader and Obi-Wan meet again in the upcoming series, or should it only happen in a dream vision, a force vision, or something like that, or just not at all? Whatever you think, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.